And so that's pretty much also interesting to understand that each EU state has a different relation with what's happening in the Middle East. We've mentioned France with the relation with the UAE. The relation with the UAE is mainly toward like armed force, military aspects. And right now we've seen how Mohammed bin Zayed is trying to shift a little bit the idea of relationship with France to something even more deeper, because also the Arab Gulf states, if we have to jump into also the topic of discussion, they understand that they have to diversify their relation with other countries, because today everything that depends on energy is being fragmented. It's put in questions. We have seen some private companies having to close their own offices and go back to their home countries because the situation is unbearable. And so they understood that they have to change stuff. But at the same time, the relation with the US is being fragilized with the Arab Gulf states. The US is seen as someone that have abandoned their original allies, such as Saudi Arabia, then after the UAE, but then it kind of went back into cordial relationship. We've seen also in a vaster idea, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and it feels like this whole country are believe that the US just abandoned them. And so right now they're trying to recreate another harmonious relationship with the EU with the spectrum of how the US betrayed them. And so right now the question is pretty much how, I feel like maybe I should ask it to continue with your discussion. How can the EU, in a sense, can utilize this weirdly weird situation that the US has created with the Arab and Gulf states in becoming probably their number one partners on whatever should be number one outside of the US? I don't know if it's understandable, but that's how I'm perceiving it right now.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So what I think, as you mentioned, that's clearly a priority. It's not a new priority, so to say, to diversify. It was rather economic diversification so far. So it's true that security diversification per se, it was not really an issue. They were really under the US, of course, security architecture and umbrella. What I find interesting is, for instance, Saudi Arabia, it was, I think, September 2025, when they signed this mutual defense pact with Pakistan. So I think we can see that, and of course, precedents happened that could explain this, why also some GCC countries already started to diversify even their security relations. As you also mentioned now, this question arises to which each, of course, individual GCC country should respond. Is the US still a trustworthy security provider, or, for instance, the US bases are rather a liability in the region? So I think, it, of course, it depends on each GCC country's own assessment. What I do find very interesting in what you say is, maybe here I would open with President Emmanuel Macron's remark, or I think it was in around April, when he had a visit to Japan. And I think in the framework of a press conference, he mentioned that, without directly alluding to the US, that one of the main strengths of the EU is its predictability. That maybe the EU might be slow, the EU might be highly technocratic. These are, of course, that's a criticism that we often hear, but the EU is reliable as a partner, trustworthy and predictable. So these, I do feel, became incredibly valued characteristics, more and more valued characteristics that these countries, GCC countries, can plan ahead with the EU for the long term.